the podcast trio. My name is Josh Shin.
I'm William Chow.
And I'm Alan Lin.
Today, we're here to talk about transcendentalism.
Now let's take us to Walden Pond.
So we were learning about transcendentalism in English class.
Well, transcendentalism is pretty much this literary and philosophical movement that developed during the 1820s and 30s in the United States as a protest against the general state of spirituality.
And with all great movements, you also have great people. Henry David Thoreau is my favorite out of all the transcendentalists.
Really? How so?
When Thoreau wrote, he wrote directly. He said, this is what is good and this is what is bad. There was no intermediary, and he made a commentary on society, a direct commentary stating how society was good and how society was bad.
I think they all agree that Walden was his best of his work.
Yeah, and the fact that he actually conducted an experiment and spent like 2 years at Walden Pond writing his works rather than reading Emerson's essays. I feel like together we can agree that Thoreau's writing is easier to understand and more easy to empathize with.
Yeah, right.
If we think Thoreau's points are great, and we can apply them in our daily lives. So one of Thoreau's most famous quotes is based off of Railroad, which is a commentary on technology and how we enslave ourselves to technology. But if we stay at home and mind our business, who will want railroads? We do not ride on the railroad, it rides upon us. This quote is taken from Thoreau's Walden.
Well, in this quote, the word railroad is a generalization of just technology used in this society because this quote is structured as a paradox. We are sacrificing important values just for these very materialistic objects, and basically railroads are riding upon us instead of us having control over these technological advancements. Using an admonitory tone, Thoreau advises society to rely less on technology, otherwise it would result in an incurable dependence.
So instead of technology serving us, we are enslaved to its will.
We can see this in our own lives and how we look at technology. We can also see some extreme cases in other portions of the world.
Right. So recently I heard on the news that there was this case in Indonesia where teens were actually resorting to drug and sex trafficking to obtain the money to buy cell phones. In this case, BlackBerries.
So in this case, these teenagers, they resorted to these extreme acts just to make some money to buy such a small gadget like a BlackBerry. And then one of these teenagers said that if we don't have a BlackBerry, we feel we are nothing and we are ignored by our friends. Well, they are being controlled by the possession of a cell phone, and it makes them feel isolated from society or from their friends just because they don't have one. The idea that technology is forcing our hand to commit these irrational actions can be seen as a theme throughout Walden. And this relates to Thoreau's quote because in his case, the railroad began to control society, and then instead it started right upon them. So in this case, the phone had controlled these teenagers and made them go to these extreme acts.
So we actually have to identify the root cause of these actions. So the root cause of these actions isn't only poverty. The primary cause is that people have to conform to society. People say, everyone has a BlackBerry, I must have a BlackBerry too. So in reality, it's about how people conform to society.
Right, so you actually raised a really good point, and this idea could be embodied in one of Walden's quotes. If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. So the term keep pace evokes in the reader a sense of a group of people marching to the same steps and rhythm. Thoreau uses this idea as a metaphor to compare to the conforming forces of society. By keeping to the same pace, our society is slowly being homogenized and merging into one single footstep. However, Thoreau felt that this shouldn't always be the case. He urges the reader to look for own gaits and patterns, and assures them that it is fine to step upon a different rhythm. Such an idea actually reoccurred throughout Walden as a theme, in which individuality is valued over conformity. Thoreau uses a reassuring tone, telling us that it's okay to hear a different drummer. He implies that societies are propelled by people who actually paces ahead of the crowd, and this is what pulls society forward.
You don't necessarily need the BlackBerry to live. You don't have to succumb to society's demand, especially in going through extreme means, such as the ones that the Indonesian kids went through.
Okay, so these quotes and these current events bring up another event, which is the FIFA World Cup in Qatar in 2022. So the FIFA organization is trying to conform to this great demand for this World Cup to happen of the soccer community because soccer is arguably one of the most popular sports in the world right now. But the FIFA organization is resorting to sacrificing human values in these horrible working conditions just for this World Cup to happen because it conforms to the
Society's demands.
okay, because it conforms to the society's demand for the World Cup.
These working conditions and an astonishing number of deaths of the vulnerable workers go beyond forced labor to the slavery of old where human beings were treated as objects.
So essentially, you have a bunch of people being treated as slaves to create these stadiums, these hotels, these infrastructures to support the World Cup.
So it actually reminds me of this quote from Eldon, where the nation itself, with all its so-called internal improvements, which by the way were all external and superficial, is just an unwieldy and overgrown establishment, cluttered with furniture and tripped up in its own traps, ruined by luxury and needless expense.
So what is Thoreau trying to get at? With words such as unwieldy, overgrown, and cluttered, he is implying the excessive society in a sense, and saying how it is all pointless. Thoreau uses a critical tone to describe society's improvements, which do nothing, they just add clutter. So we have to ask the question with Qatar. Qatar is doing the exact same thing, they're adding clutter, it's pointless. So what do we do with the stadiums after the World Cup? What's the point in the end? You're spending $20 billion on an infrastructure, but it's all superficial.
It has become such a overgrown and unwieldy process and establishment. So it has evolved from the simple enjoyment in soccer into this entire complicated process where human lives were devalued and risked.
So we have horrid working conditions where it's treated like slavery. So we have $20 billion being spent, over 100,000 people immigrating to Qatar annually, 44 deaths over this 2014 summer, and the workers being unpaid, no running water in their homes, they often starve, and they're often beat up by their managers. So soccer is supposed to be a game, but what are we doing to it? We're turning it into an industry. Rather than relaxing with soccer, we're turning it into a point of stress. We don't play soccer. Soccer plays us.
So do we conform to society's demands, or do we define our own ambitions? Well, only you can answer this question, because that's what transcendentalism is all about. It's about what you think is correct, and that's all that matters.
If society was an ocean, and people were droplets flowing throughout the ocean, transcendentalism would be a lighthouse blazing across that sea. Transcendentalism is about individuality. You do not have to listen to the media. You do not have to listen to your peers around you. You only have to listen to yourself.
In the ideal transcendentalist world, the society should be but an ocean, a collection of unique individuals. It should be a canvas painting where the colors doesn't mix, but each stands out and stays true to their own vibrancy. We should all look through our own thoughts and pave our own path in this field of conformity.
Society said mess to me, am I the only one to feel it? Need to clear my head, got to go and live in the woods. It opened up my eyes. Now let me show you my insight. I guess what I'll be saying is there ain't no better reason to carry away excitation just to with the season. It's life near the core we should be looking for. Oh, please don't hesitate. No more, it cannot wait, I'm sure. Well, open up your mind and see like me. Refuse to pay the taxes for London way. Look into yourself and you'll find life's yours. Come from to the people, it's just overrated, don't you see? Individuality, and just trying to find a path that'll be yours. So please don't hesitate. No more, it cannot wait. I'm sure there's no need to complicate our life anymore. This is your fate, be yours.
So thank you for listening to this segment of the podcast trio. Please tune in next time at Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. to be fun.
My society thing that media. Yeah, media. Okay. Okay, this is the video. Josh Tapkins.
It's actually really